Homeowners across the country are sounding the alarm on a surge of squatting cases, which has been difficult to address because it's considered a civil matter, and police, well, they have no authority. Now, some property owners warn desperate Americans may try to take matters into their own hands and the consequences that could result. Real estate mogul Sean Mike joins me now. It's great to have you here. Sean, why are you concerned?
Well, first of all, Dana, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'm concerned because I've done this for the better part of 25 to 30 years. And when you get people that go out there and take their hard-earned money to buy a home they reside in or a second home or their first rental property, and the law tells you that somebody can occupy your residence illegally, and it's a civil matter to get them out, at some point in time, Dana, when our morality doesn't make sense, like compared to the law, and there's lawlessness, we're bound to take matters into our own hands. Do I want people to do that? Absolutely not. But do I think that if we don't start changing these laws and enforcing these laws across the country, do I think homeowners are going to take these actions in their own hands? Of course they are. And actually, it'd be ridiculous for us to think that's not going to happen.
And do you think squatting is on the rise, or are we just paying more attention to it?
Listen, I've been doing this for a long time. It's not because we're paying more attention to it. It's on the rise. The reality really is when people, and these are criminals. If you occupy my property illegally, that's a crime, just as if I were to do yours, right? So at the end of the day, what's happening, you see people all over social media on TikTok telling people from other countries, come to the United States, come to America. You can actually occupy properties, stay there, put written notice on the door, order Uber Eats, get a receipt, and then law enforcement, their hands are tied, and they look at the individual who's at their wit's end because they're thinking, this is my property. How does this happen? And what's the definition of insanity, right? I don't need to be Einstein to know that you keep doing this over and over again and want a different reaction. Something bad is going to happen. People are going to take matters into their own hands. I live in Florida. We have laws in Florida that are now aggressive because I'm assuming part of what DeSantis realized was, hey, we want law and order. We don't want people taking matters in their own hands. But when the law doesn't protect the law-abiding citizens, what are we going to do? But believe me, it's on the rise because people realize now they can do this with no consequence.
I saw this on the BBC that squatters took over Gordon Ramsay's 13 million pound London pub. But what I wanted to ask you about, Sean, is that most people who are landlords of this type, they're not ultra wealthy people. These are often middle class earners or people who have figured out a way to try to build wealth in their own lives by finding property which provides housing that people want to rent.
The first property I bought, Dana, was to try to put my family in a better position in my early 20s when I decided I was going to have a family and have my own children. Had this happened to me, and had my very first property, had somebody occupied it illegally, that could have literally bankrupted me. I was just trying to find a way to get ahead for my family. And the reality really is that's where most people are at. So now what happens in the real estate market? People will call me and say, what do you think? I'm like, well, check the laws, check how they're being enforced. And now people are actually being driven out of the real estate market because what we're looking at here in the Bronx, that's just not that property owner. That's all the property owners around that individual, and it's devastating people on a daily basis. So I know what it's like. That's how I built my wealth. That's where I started. My mother and I and my little brother grew up in a one-bedroom apartment. I never thought for a minute that we didn't have to pay rent. My mom worked 3 jobs to pay rent. And if somebody knocked on our door on the 10th of the month and said we need to be out for not paying rent, my mom raised me that they would have been justified. So at the end of the day, it's taken a lot of people. I mean, real estate to me is how I built my American dream. But I have people that call me daily, and it's a nightmare for them because of the way the laws are run, because they're not enforced. And what's being actually condoned and reinforced is a scary place to be.
Sean, thank you for being on the show. I'm going to continue to follow you and all of your thoughts, and good luck getting back to Florida.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Take care.